So, September, quite a month, I must say. But that does not mean I was not collecting music still. And of course, I got my computer fixed just in time for the monthly CD haul where I go through all the CDs I acquired throughout the month and I give my first impressions. So, kind of like last month, I didn't quite get as much as I normally would, which again, to some, that's probably a good thing. So in total, I'm going to be talking about 18 albums. So maybe a little bit more from last month, but you know, some good stuff still. Some interesting stuff, good variety as you always expect to see in these CD hauls, and hopefully you enjoy these. And if you do, please give this video a like, subscribe if you are new. If you want to be the first to find out what CDs enter the collection, then check out my Patreon page. Link to that will be in the description. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it. And kicking off this CD haul, we have 10cc with their self-titled debut from 1973. So yeah, I was pretty fortunate to find another 10cc album in the wild. So as of now, I have 3 albums from them. So before this, I had How Dare You and the original soundtrack. But here it is. And what's interesting about this particular CD is that it's actually a Japanese issue. And the reason why I know that is because one, it's kind of like a little LP replica. And the second, when I looked inside the sleeve, it actually came with these little obi strips, which you find in a lot of Japanese CDs. I know, I have quite a bit of these already. But yeah, it's like a little LP, so you just take everything out. There's the disc in the little sleeve, which is very nice. And then they even replicate what I think was the liner notes originally. And then here's some other evidence that this was a Japanese sort of issue, is that it comes with this little Japanese booklet. So I guess so Japanese people can read it. But still, pretty cool. Of course, the downside is that it is in a sleeve, so it's not going to be with the collection, the jewel case collection, but you know, it will always find some space with the other sleeves I have. But onto the album itself, I will say it's a pretty strong debut. I still think I prefer How Dare You and the original soundtrack a bit more, but I think this is a pretty strong album to start with. And there's only 10 songs. Of course, this has bonus songs, but the 10 songs on here, of those 10, some of the songs that stand out as I look to my notes: Johnny Don't Do It, Stand in My Face, The Dean and I, Headline Hustler, Rubber Bullets, the Hospital song, Ships Don't Disappear in the Night, they do, and it closes off with a nice song with Fresh Air for My Mama. So again, you know, it has a very art rockish sort of feel. There's some quirkiness to it, but I think it comes along very nicely. And yeah, this is definitely one I want to listen to more, and just 10cc in general I need to check out more. I need to give more time to them, but still a very nice find here, and a nice little way to start the CD haul. And here's another one I was pretty fortunate to find in the wild. We have Atomic Rooster with their second album, Death Walks Behind You. So I've heard a little bit of Atomic Rooster. They're not one of those like big selling bands or whatever, but you know, when you're in the know, when you're in the music community, every once in a while this band is brought up. And another thing that's notable about the band is that this is where Carl Palmer got his early starts. I think Carl played with Arthur Brown for a period of time, and then he joined this band, and then he would leave not long after. He's not on this album, by the way, but he of course go on to form Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and I think in the same year. But anyway, so at this point the band's a trio, and Atomic Roosters is basically lumped into hard rock, maybe a bit of blues rock, and even a little bit progressive rock. And you definitely hear that on this album, because there's a couple instrumental tracks. Some of the songs are slightly longer than your typical rock song, but it's still pretty rocking. It's still pretty heavy, and the album cover is quite interesting too. So there's really not too many songs on the album. There's only 8 tracks, and the songs that stood out to me the most were the title track, which is a great heavy track to start it off, Tomorrow Night, Sleeping for Years, I Can't Take No More, and Nobody Else. So that's 5 out of the 8. The ones that didn't make it are the instrumental tracks, which again, if you know me, that's not new. But the playing is still very solid. I definitely do want to check out more. I heard their debut is pretty good too, so we'll see if I ever find that in a record store or if I have to buy it online. We'll see how that goes, but definitely happy to get this band in the collection. So they've been on the list for quite some time, so excellent find here. And here we have more Bjork. This is her album called, and I probably should have looked it up before I started, but I believe it's pronounced Vespertine or Vespertine, something on that line. So yeah, it's been a long time since I've listened to more Bjork. My history so far is that I really dig her a lot, but she's definitely one of those artists where you're gonna need to listen to these albums more than once, and that's kind of applies to this album as well. So far, besides debut, because debut, I resonate with that one very quickly. Everything else afterward, even post, which most people say that's one of her best albums, even that needs more time. I need more time to really listen to that one and really dig deep into it, if you will. And this is, again, in that same boat. I like what I'm hearing, but it just hasn't fully clicked with me quite yet. There's still a lot of that intricate, very experimental, very avant-garde at times, but you still have glimpses of something you can latch onto, like a good melody in there. And her vocals, again, are very all over, which I tend to like a lot, like vocalists that can do that. And so I'm going to name the songs that stood out, but please know this is not like the final like best song list, right, or whatever. This is just what I liked in the moment. But again, in more listens, more songs could be added. So right now I have Hidden Place, It's Not Up to You, Undo, Pagan Poetry, Sun in My Mouth, Warm of Will, Warm of Will, yeah. Just make sure I read that. And the last song, Unison. So again, those are the songs that stood out, but again, in due time, this could resonate with me more on further listens. So again, take it for what you will, but still very, very happy to find more Bjork. Again, it's been a long time. All right, here is Sabrina Carpenter with her follow-up album to Short and Sweet with Man's Best Friend. I know the album cover gets a lot of attention and there's some controversy on it. I'm not going to get into that. Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But anyways, so this is her follow-up to Short and Sweet, like I said. And I really like Short and Sweet a lot. I was actually a very surprised discovery for me. I didn't expect to like the album as much. So I was actually pretty looking forward to her follow-up. And does this album live up to Short and Sweet? Yes and no. I say yes because on one hand I do enjoy a lot of the songs here, but I'm also going to say no because I feel like the songwriting isn't quite up to par with the last one. Again, like I said, there's still some very catchy songs on here, so I'll just list off the songs that stood out, and it's quite a bit actually. Man Child with the first song, which I think was the first single. That's a nice catchy number. Tears is a nice good upbeat sort of dancey sort of track. My Man on Willpower is pretty strong. Sugar Talking is pretty good. Nobody's Son, I like that one a lot. Never Getting Laid. Go-Go Juice, which is a very, very funny title. Don't Worry, I'll Make You Worry. That's kind of like the ballad of the album, which I've heard a lot of people say that's kind of the weaker songs, but of course it's a ballad, so of course I'm gonna like that one. And I also really liked House Tour. That's another catchy, fun song. But like I said, there was definitely some songs that didn't quite work for me, and I'm gonna give like a little, I guess, hot take. I guess there's a hot take with this for me at this album. So a lot of people will say Goodbye is a good song, is a great song, it's like another one of those dance songs. But the thing that's notable about that track is that it's musically it's very much ABBA coded. Like musically you can hear all the similar sounds that you would hear in an ABBA song, and you would think I would love that because I love ABBA. I love ABBA a lot. But for me, I feel like the song falls a bit short. Again, musically it's great. Again, very ABBA. But I just feel like the vocals didn't quite get to that level. Because, you know, ABBA has these bigger, very powerful vocals, and I feel like Sabrina's vocals didn't quite match that sort of very bombastic, very in-your-face sort of vocal style, which we know from ABBA. So that's like my big gripe with that song. It's not a bad song. I'm not going to say it's a bad song, but I feel like it could have been more. But other than that, still, very good album. I'm still glad I got it. But like I said, it's not quite on the same level as Short and Sweet, but you know, maybe that's not a bad thing. Again, listen. Let me try that again. Listen to this for yourself, and then you can make your own opinion from that point onward. But I'll give it a thumbs up still. And here I have two releases from the same duo, basically, and it's actually a duo I've actually brought up fairly recently, and that duo is Erasure. I picked up their debut album called Wonderland, and then for giggles, I also bought a compilation album. So, like I said, I talked about Erasure recently in my Thomas the Tank Engine on vinyl video. Go check that out if you haven't seen that. And I did mention Erasure because one of their singles had some Thomas the Tank Engine characters on it, and I go through a little brief history on that. But for that single, it was for this particular album, and I wasn't really sure if I wanted to get Erasure because they have a very synth pop sound and very dance oriented sound, which I like it in doses, but maybe not a whole album. But I'll talk about the debut first. It's actually pretty solid. I actually liked it a bit more than I thought I would. But that said, I wouldn't say I would go back to this album a lot, aside from maybe a few songs. But that said, the songs that I did like, Who Needs Love Like That, Cry So Easy, Heavenly Action was a pretty good song. I'd probably re-listen to that one quite a bit. Love Is a Loser, March On Down the Line, My Heart's So Blue, and of course you have Ou L'Amour, which is by far the best song on here, and of course I have the single for it. But yeah, like I said, it's very synth pop, very synth heavy, and so if you like that, you'll probably dig it. But for me, I kind of need a bit more variation in the music. And the same thing, while we're here, I'll talk about the compilation because it has 20 songs, and again, same problem. Some of the songs I liked, I dug. You know, there's songs like A Little Respect I liked. Ship of Fools was okay. Blue Savannah was also a song I kind of dug. But the majority of the songs start to feel samey. Didn't quite stick with me. It was just there's some fine songs, but nothing mind-blowing or stuff I would recommend to you unless you like that sound. But fun fact, you have Vince Clarke, who does the keyboards, and he's pretty much the main, I guess, musician of the band. And of course he started out in Depeche Mode first, but then he would leave the band after the debut and then form Erasure. And so yeah, and the singer Andy Bell, solid singer. Again, not amazing to me, but again, he fits the sound very well. But overall, my thoughts on Erasure, you know, who knows? I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna get any more Erasure, but as of now, I think I'm fine, unless you can convince me. And let me know your thoughts on any of these albums as I go, or any other recommendations you might have. But there we go, that's Erasure for you. Okay, so next up we have another artist, and I have 4 albums from him, and he's a pretty well-known guitar player. I say fairly well-known because if you're in the progressive rock scene, then you know him very well, especially if you're a Genesis fan, and that fellow is Steve Hackett. I picked up more of his solo albums. I have Please Don't Touch, then I have Defector from 1980, and after that we have the next album, which is Cured, and then the follow-up to that album is called Highly Strung. So I have a couple of Steve Hackett albums in the collection already. I have his debut, I have Spectral Morning, and I even have Guitar Noir, which is a later album, surprisingly. But lo and behold, I found more of his solo albums. So we'll start with Please Don't Touch. This is his second studio album, and it's also the first album after he left Genesis. And I really dug this one. I think I think by far it's my favorite of the 4 that I have here, because you have a lot of guest stars on here. Right off the gate, you have the song Narnia, and really nice song, really nice opening melody on that one. And you have Steve Walsh from Kansas on lead vocals, which is pretty cool. I really like Steve Walsh, so it's kind of nice to hear him on here. But other songs that I really liked were Racing in A, which I believe was another one with Steve on vocals. Steve Walsh, I mean, not Steve Hackett. Kim was actually a pretty nice instrumental with a nice guitar and flute with Steve and his brother kind of playing along with each other. How Can I, another good one. Hoping Love Will Last, like the female vocals in that one. The title track was pretty nice, and Icarus Ascending. So a very nice album in its discography. Definitely want to check, definitely need to re-listen to those other albums I have, but just to compare. But I really like this one a lot, so it could be a pretty, it will rank high for me if I ever do rank Steve Hackett, which won't happen for a while. But anyway, moving on, we have Defector up next, and it is another pretty nice album. So I'm looking at the notes right now. Songs that stood out were The Steps, I believe that's how you say it, Time to Get Out, Slogans, Leaving, Hammer in the Sand, The Toast, and The Show. So again, pretty strong album. I think I still slightly prefer Please Don't Touch Me a little bit more. What did I just say it? Did I just say Please Don't Touch Me? I still prefer Please Don't Touch more than this, but still some nice playing on here. And of course you're here for the guitar playing, and of course Steve Hackett is an excellent guitar player, so not much to say on that. But then we have Cured, which to most Steve Hackett fans, this is one of his weakest albums, because this is him trying to have a commercial hit or something like that. And you know me, I always try to stick it to prog snobs who always crap on progressive rock people doing pop. So what do I think of this one? Am I actually gonna go against what the prog fans say, or am I gonna actually agree with them? And this might be a shock. I'm actually gonna agree with the prog snobs on this one. Yeah, this was kind of there are some good melodies on here, but there's really one crushing thing about this one that really brings it down. Yeah, Steve Hackett is not that good of a singer. He sings a little bit on his solo albums, but I think he sings vocals on all these tracks, and after a while it gets kind of grating. There's no real power into it. He doesn't really fit the sound here. And yeah, it was kind of a disappointment, because I was ready to be defensive of this album, but I honestly don't have much to defend, really. And also the album cover is kind of off-putting, because this is like the most random photo they got from him for this. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed on that one, honestly. But it does pick up yet again with Highly Strung, which I'm going to bring up here. And here it is over here. Back to some more good album covers, because yeah, going from this to this, it's like much better. It still has Steve trying to go for something commercial, but I think it works a lot better. Still, he's singing most of the songs, which again is not really that my cup of tea, but he sounds slightly better here. But again, don't expect something amazing vocally, but musically I think it's much better. Standout tracks are Camino Royale, Cell 151, Walking Through the Walls, Give It Away, India Rubber Man, and a nice little instrumental track with Hack It to Pieces. But yeah, definitely a much better improvement. And again, it's very cool to find more Steve Hackett and have it in the collection. Very nice find. So yeah, I'd say this is my favorite of the 4. Then I think this is probably my second favorite. This is third, and then yeah, this is the least by far. But still, very nice albums to check out if you're a Genesis fan. So next up we have an album called Jupiter's Darling, and this is by the band Heart. This is a later Heart release. This came out, when? Does it come out 2004? Something like that? 2004 maybe? Yeah, 2004. That's what it says on the back. But yeah, a latter period Heart album. This is actually the first for me. So this is them kind of in that vein of kind of going back to that more hard rock sound that they once had in the 70s, because of course in the 80s they had the big commercial pop hits, but now they're kind of going back to their roots at this point. It's a pretty strong album. I like it. I wouldn't say it's like, there's not too many songs that I think were very memorable, because a lot of the songs did kind of have a somewhat, not generic, but it's good, but it's not really songs I'm going to remember. But the songs that I did that did stick out to me were the first song, Make Me, Oldest Story in the World, The Perfect Goodbye, Move On, I Need the Rain, No Other Love, Lost Angel, and then the final song, Hello Moonglow, which I think was a pleasant enough closing track. But another thing about this album is that it's pretty long. It's an hour. There's 16 songs on here, so there's going to be some songs that are going to feel like filler. But it's still not bad. I like it. But again, I wouldn't say it's like my favorite hard album. But, you know, Ann Wilson still sounds great. Nancy sings a couple songs where she's good as well. But, you know, nothing really else to really say about it. It's fine. And next up, we have some REO Speedwagon. We have Riding the Storm out. And I even picked up their live album, which is You Get What You Play For. Get the pun there? Anyway, so let's talk about Riding the Storm out first, because I was actually shocked to find this one, because this is early REO. This is when they had the debut, and then they had their second album, which was the first with Kevin Cronin. But then Kevin would leave the band, and then this is their third studio album, and you have a singer named Mike Murphy on lead vocals, and he would stick around for 3 albums in total, and then they would go back to Kevin after that. But this is the first with Mike Murphy, and again, I was shocked to find this, because, you know, you're not really going to see much early REO in the wild too often, because I would assume they're just a bit more rarer to get. But lo and behold, I found it, so I had to get it. And actually, I was actually pretty impressed with this. I mean, yeah, I think Kevin is like the voice of REO Speedwagon, but I think Mike does a solid job. Again, if he's not going to be like a top 10 singer for me, but he does fit fairly well with this sound. Again, you have Gary Richrath, which has great guitar work throughout the album, and really a lot of the songs were pretty high energy, aside from a few songs which were slightly more mellow, but still, you know, there's 10 songs on here, and there was really, I'd say the second half is when it kind of dips a little bit, but it does pick it up at the very end. But yeah, other than that, very good album. I would recommend you check it out if you're curious on early REO Speedwagon. But still, excellent find. And of course you have the live album, which of course this is when the band would slowly start to gain more recognition, especially with the live version of Riding the Storm Out, which was on this album. But on this live album you have Kevin singing, and that version would go on to have some radio play, but you still get some early REO Speedwagon tracks that you're not going to hear too often. So it's a good blend between old and new, if you will. But yeah, still good playing, solid live album. I don't have much else to say, but still very cool to find this. Now, I did say I have 18 albums to talk about, but if you really want to be technical, there's only 17 CDs here. And the reason is because this next one is a 2-in-1 pack. And the band is Slade. And I picked up this 2-in-1 pack with their debut album called Beginnings and their follow-up album, Play It Loud. So Slade is another one of those bands that, while they weren't like huge sellers, they have a very cult following. I know many bands have talked highly of them, and I was really curious. And so I found this, of course, their first album, and this is when they were called Ambrose Slade. And so by the time you get to the next album, they kind of dropped that and they're just called Slade. Like, I don't really know a lot about Slade. I don't know what's considered their classic period. But, you know, we're starting from the beginning, so maybe this would be a good like progression I'll do if I ever do find more Slade. Starting with the debut, which is that one right there on the left there. Pretty strong debut. some good songs on here. There's a lot of covers though, but some of the covers were pretty fine. Like, I actually really like their Born to Be Wild cover. Actually pretty good, very heavy song. But then all the other songs on here were pretty good to okay, but it's not a bad debut. But the next album, Play It Loud, which is on the right, I think is a lot stronger. This is when they're starting to write their own material, and it actually shows that they're improving on what they started with. And yeah, I think it's definitely top to bottom, I think is a much stronger album. But I feel like we're still in the growing pains phase, where they're still not quite at their full potential yet. So if you're a Slade fan, please let me know what album I should check out. What's like the classic album from them, or what period I should look out for. I definitely want to give this band a fair shot, but still, nice, good start with them. And then we have the Talking Heads with Fear of Music. And this might possibly be the last Talking Heads album I'll ever buy, because I'll be honest, I've liked what I've heard, but I still wouldn't say I'm like a die-hard fan like a lot of people are. There's some good songs in their discography, but aside from a few, not really vibing with the others. Again, this could be another scenario where I need to give them more listens, but still haven't quite made it there yet. And yeah, this is another one of those albums where I like some of it, but the rest I still haven't quite clicked. It hasn't quite clicked. But the songs that I thought were fine were Mind, Paper, Cities, Life During Wartime. I didn't know that one. I've seen the live rendition of that track. Air, Heaven, and then Animals. Yeah, so I don't have much else to say. Talking Heads, very artsy, very quirky, but yeah, which is weird because I normally like quirky, but I don't know. So for some reason they haven't quite made it for me. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe we'll give it more chances, but yeah, not gonna say anything else besides that. Next up, we have XTC with their second album, Go To. And yes, that is the actual album cover. Well, I won't say this is the original cover, because I think they modify it slightly for the CD. If you get it on vinyl, I think it says something a little bit different. But it's basically the same idea. But yeah, XTC. So this is now the third album I have from the band. I have Drums and Wires, and I have English Settlement. So this is them still early on, and yeah, you can tell because there's kind of in that kind of post-punk, new wave, maybe a little bit of a, what was I going to say, art rock, if you will. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. Don't quite love it, but there's some decent songs like Mechanic Dancing, Crowded Room, The Rhythm, Red, My Weapon, I Am the Audience. So there's some nice songs on here, but I think you can still hear them still trying to find their unique, their own voice. But I think the songwriting would improve moving forward. But still, it's very interesting. I kind of liked it still, even though it's still not quite what most people would say classic XTC. But still nice to find more, and I still plan to get more of them in the future, so I'll keep my eye out for them. Okay, I'm almost at the end. I only have one more album to talk about. It's a soundtrack album, and it's to a Netflix film, and you may have heard of it in passing, or you've already seen it. And that Netflix film is K-Pop Demon Hunters. Right, yeah, I got the K-Pop Demon Hunter bug, and I did get the soundtrack on CD. Although I will make one admission. I haven't actually seen it yet. I know. I should probably watch the movie because I heard it's really good. But hey, I had to cancel my Netflix subscription because I got to save money somewhere. But I will watch it at some point, so mark my words on that. But any case, what's good about the soundtrack and a lot of the songs on here is that you can actually listen to these songs totally out of context and you wouldn't miss a thing. I have not seen the movie, and even I still think these songs are really good. The production, of course, it's it's very modern pop. If you like K-pop and it has that production style, if you do not like K-pop, then you might need to stay away from this as far as possible. But I don't mind that sound that much. So the songs that I really enjoyed on here, of course, you have the song Takedown, and there's actually 2 versions on here, which both are great. I like both of them. How It's Done has a little bit of a slight hip-hop little edge to it, but I still think it works very nicely. And then you have Soda Pop, which is kind of one of the big songs on here. That's with it's mostly female singers, but you have a couple songs that were sung by males, and that's actually one of the better ones here. Of course, you have the big song. I think probably the biggest song on here is Golden. That's probably the big hit on here. But that's a great song. The vocals on there are stellar. Strategy is pretty good. Your Idol is pretty alright. It's not one of my favorite songs on here, but Free, kind of like a more ballad type of song on there, which I really like a lot. And then you have the song What It Sounds Like. Probably might be my favorite song on here. I could probably tell that's probably played during the climax of the movie, and it definitely has a very epicness to it, and it would kind of fit well in that context. And then the rest of the songs, you have some like songs I believe were for the end credits and some other score, a little bit of the score. But yeah, it's just based on the soundtrack, I probably would need to give the movie a watch at some point. So again, mark my words on that. And what's good about the CD packaging is that a couple things. Let me just go ahead, because one thing is that the artwork inside is pretty cute. You got some nice little cheapy versions of the characters, and then you have a little mini poster, which sadly I'm not going to be able to hang because it has the cover art on it. But what's good is that they actually come with these little, like, I don't know what you call these things, little cards. And I guess if you buy a CD, you get it's random on what you get. So I got this one right here, and like I said, I think it's different for every CD you pick up. So I'm not going to be one of those that's going to buy and try to collect them all, but I guess that's something you could do. But there you go. So yeah, this is the first time K-pop has entered my collection, so you can count this as a historic moment in Bryer's Music Showcase history. Just wanted to point that out. But anyway, let's go ahead. We'll close out the video. All right, there you have it. That is all the CDs I have picked up for the month of September. And I think I did this last month too, because I didn't pick up as much as I normally would. I can actually do like a little recap. So we'll go in reverse order. We have the soundtrack to K-pop Demon Hunter. You have Go To by XTC. We have Slade with Beginnings and Play It Loud. We have Talking Heads, Fear of Music. We have REO Speedwagon with Riding the Storm Out and You Get What You Play For. We have Jupiter's Darling by Heart. Then we have some Steve Hackett with Highly Strung, Cured, Defector, and Please Don't Touch. And then we have Erasure with the Top 20 Hits. And then we have Wonderland. Then we have Sabrina Carpenter with Man's Best Friend. Then we have Vespertine by Bjork. Then we have Atomic Rooster, Death Walks Behind You. And then finally we have the self-titled debut of
10cc.
So we'll see what next month will bring me, I should say. And again, probably like always, a lot of variety, just like here. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy these, then please give this a like, subscribe if you are new, and of course in the comments let me know your thoughts on any of the albums I've shown. And if you want to support the channel, links to the Patreon page, or you can buy me a coffee, all that will be in the description. So until next time, we'll see if I'll be more prolific in October, and I should be, because the 5th anniversary is coming up, so I got something planned for that, so look out. But until then, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and goodbye for now.